We're on Ayin Amud Aleph on the top. So we spoke yesterday in the Mishnah. There was a machlokas. Based on the Mishnah, there was a machlokas between Rav Huna and Rabbah. Rav Huna had this idea of kisaver lemafreya kadosh, that a bechor is sanctified retroactively, and therefore lemaisa we see that it was a bechor from the very beginning, and therefore if after the first third you sell it to an ovei kochavim, it's not chal, and it maintains its status as a bechor, even though had a ovei kochavim owned part of it the entire time, then there would be no status of a bechor. So now we're going to discuss this idea of retroactively going back. So it says in Gemara Tnan, we're on the second line of Ayin Amud Aleph, Hamivakeres hamakashe leileit. If you have an animal that's having difficulty in labor, we say that's just the common case. Mechatech ever umashech leklavim. You could cut off each limb as the fetus comes out and throw it to the dogs, because each limb as it comes out is not a rove of the animal, and therefore it's not yet a bechor, and it's not a bechor, so you can throw it to the animals. We said once rove comes out, or if rove comes out, if rosho comes out, then it's got the status of a bechor, and you can no longer throw it to the animals, you have to bury it. Says the Gemara, Mechatech ever umashlich lavim maidlav mechatech umeniach. So Gemara wants to suggest that maybe it means you cut off the limb, and you leave it on the side until the majority of the fetus has come out, and then you go ahead and you throw all of the limbs to the dogs. So the question on Rav Huna is, if you say the lemafreya retroactively it's going to be sanctified, you cover me by, shut the door please. Then you have to go ahead and you have to bury it. Why? Because what did you do here? If you cut off a piece of the fetus and you throw it to the dog right away, that piece of the fetus for sure, until a majority of the animal has come out, is not a bechor. It has no kedusha. But if you cut off different parts of the animal until now a majority has come out and they're all sitting on the side over here, according to Rav Huna, what do you say? Limafreya is kadosh. Now, after the fact, you have to look at all of those pieces as what? As being kadosh now that a majority has come out. How can you go ahead and throw them to the dogs? What's the Gemara obviously going to answer? You can't throw it to the dogs when a majority has come out. What's it talking about? It's talking about throwing each individual piece to the dogs. You cut off each limb, and as you do it, you throw it to the dogs. But according to Rav Huna, if you cut off each limb as it comes out and you put it on the side, once rove comes out, you cannot throw rove to the dogs, because now once rove comes out, we consider it to be a bechor. If you cut off the limbs and you leave them, what's the story? You cover the Tani Sefer Yatsa Rubo. You cover Niftar Bechor. So now the Gemara asks, understand. In the Sefer it says that once Rubo comes out, like let's say the head comes out at once, then you bury it, because now it's a bechor. Liflog, when listening to this, so what doesn't it say? By the first clause, says that's what it says. So again, it comes out in our Mishnah as follows. According to Rav Huna, things retroactively can become something. So what happens? Comes out a piece of the firstborn. An arm comes out. Well, what happens? Now, obviously, you can't just start cutting off arms for no reason, but we're saying that there's a danger to the mother. So what do? You cut off that arm. That arm is not rove, a majority of the animal. Therefore, that arm is not going to be kadosh als bechor, because a majority of the animal has not yet come out. It's not bechor until it comes out. So that arm you cut off, you could throw it to the klavim. The next arm comes out, you could throw it to the klavim. Until a majority of the animal has come out, now you can no longer throw it to the klavim. Says the Gemara, though, according to Rav Huna, since we work retroactively, if you would cut off this arm and not throw it to the klavim, you put it on the side. Cut off the next arm and put it on the side. Cut off the leg and put it on the side. Again, you're cutting it off because it's a danger to the animal. Now that you have rove of the animal outside of the animal, you have rove of the fetus sitting there on the side. Now it's acquired the status of bechor. Now lemaisa, you can no longer throw it to the animals, because to the dog, because that animal is now kadosh as a bechor. BAYT Rava. Listen to this question. It's a little bit complicated, but I'm not exactly sure. It's not like we said yesterday. Some of the havamina is hard to understand, but we understand. It's an interesting. This is very interesting havamina. Halchu beivar nachar rov. Olo halchu beivar nachar. Do we go after majority when it comes to a limb? What does this mean in English? Heichidami elim gon sheyatsa rov b'miyud eiver. The majority has emerged with a minority of a limb. Here's the question. What did we say? We said, when I stand up, it's getting serious. We say that when a majority, let's say 51% of the fetus comes out, it's considered to have been a majority. Now it's been born. Now you can no longer, etc. All the halachas apply. now it's a bechor, now we go ahead and you can no longer eat it if the majority came out, as opposed to if one thing came out, then maybe if it puts it back you could eat it, maybe just that part you can't eat, but once 51% comes out, or the rosh comes out, now that entire fetus is no longer mutter als the mother. So the interesting question becomes, you need to have 51%, right? So what happens here if you have 51% that came out, but part of that 51%, again, it's a hard havamina to understand, part of that 51% is this part of the arm, a minority of this arm. I'm just using arm and leg, whatever. Let's say other parts of the animal are sticking out. 48% of the animal is sticking out through other places, and including this part of the arm, which is sticking out, now it has 51 or 52%. The question the Gemara has, which is a very interesting question, is, do we say, okay, now 51% of the animal is sticking out and it's a rov and it's no longer inside the mother. If you shach the mother, you can't eat it. It's been born as a bechor, etc. Or do we say that since a majority of this limb is still inside, we count the part that's outside as still being inside, and therefore the 48% doesn't have this 3% to add to it, and therefore still only 48% of the animal is inside the body. Interesting question. The Gemara is going to reject it and say that's ridiculous. Why would you say that this 3% doesn't go? But the havamin is that this 3%, which is 3% of the total body of the animal, obviously, this 3% should be nullified through the majority of this limb that's still inside, and therefore it's ke'ilu, this is not outside, and now when you look at the animal without this part, only 48% of the animal is sticking outside. That's the havamin. The Gemara is going to reject it, but that was an interesting svara. Says the Gemara again, how do you read this? Elif going sheyatsa rov b'miyut aver. Rov of the animal, 51% has come out with the miyut, with only the miyut of this specific aver, with a little bit of this aver. What do you do? Bekami baile. Hi miyut debrai. This minority is keilu. It's outside the womb because again, this is sticking out. This is the only part of this part that's sticking out. So do we look at it as this is out, like the other 48%, and now you got 51%, or do we look at it, even though it's out, since this whole part is in, this is actually in? Now you still only got 48%. Basa rov de aver shadinan lei, the majority of the limb which is in. Or basa ruba de uvar shadinan lei, which is out. Says the Gemara, Pshita deloshaf kina ruba d'uber v'azina basa rov aver. The Gemara says that can't be Rava's question because it's obvious that we're not going to say, well, this part goes with the part that's in. It's obvious that this part that's out is going to be with the rest of the animal that's out, and 51%, you have 51%. The Gemara is going to say in a second it's not so pashut, and maybe that is what the question is, but right now it says it's pashut. So what's his question? Listen to this. Now it's the other way. You have 50% is out of the animal. Now we have the other way. The Gemara says this is a better question. 50% of the animal is out. You need 1 more percent. Included in that 50% is rov of this aver, as opposed to miyud in the last case. Rov now is sticking out. Can we add the little bit of this aver that's still in and say it's batel to the rov that's out, and now add another small part of this aver, which now will make the entire thing, if we count this part out as well, now you got 51% of the whole animal out. So that's an opposite way. First we want to be mevata the little part to the in. Now we're asking, can we, now that we have 50% with this part, can we include this little part, say even though it's in, it's really out, like the rest of its arm, and therefore now we have a total of 51%, including that part that's in. Very interesting. Says the Gemara Tashma, Yotza Ruba Reza Yikaver. The problem is that the Mishnah says that if a majority comes out, you have to bury it because it's a bechor. Says the Gemara, what's the chiddush? We already know Rubo Kekulo. What does that mean, my Rubo? Elima Rubo Mamish. If it's just telling you that when rov of the animal comes out, it's a bechor, what's the chiddush? Obviously, if rov of the animal comes out, it's a bechor. Everywhere in Shas, everywhere in the world, rov is kekulo. Says the Gemara, kekulo. Of course we know that. Elalav, what's the case? What's it telling me? Yatza rubo, that if what? It's referring to a case where what? Where one half emerged, but it's the majority of a certain limb. And what's it saying? It's teaching us that it needs to be buried, that the part that's inside actually goes with the part that's outside, and therefore, Lamaisa, that's the chiddush here, is that this little part actually goes out. Says the Gemara, no, low, ridiculous. No, it's dealing with a case where the majority emerged, but the minority is still inside. Majority emerged, but the minority, with the majority, the fetus emerged with the minority of a certain limb. No, what it's telling us is not this chiddush. What it's telling us is that it's not so pashut. We thought it was pashut that what? When you have 48% of the animal out, including the minority of this aver, which is 3%, you might think that this gets batel to this and it's not actually out. It's not so pashut. You need the Mishnah to tell me that what? That yatsa rubo hareze yikaver. That as long as rove of the animal is out, even though it includes a little bit of this thing, this still is considered to be out and not in, and therefore rove of the animal is out. But it's not going to teach me anything about the case where rove of the thing is out and 50% is out, but this is in. We're not going to say that this part also goes out as well. So again, the bottom line is, whatever's out is out, and whatever's in is in. Says the Gemara, Bari Rava.
That's not weird.
Okay, so now, again, like we've said many times, you might give a little bit of a smirk, you might give a little bit of a smile. Like we said many times, the Gemara comes up with some crazy cases sometimes to prove a point. Not literally going to happen, but it's trying to prove a point. So the question we're dealing with here is, we said that you need to have Peter Rechem in order to be a firstborn, to have the laws of Bechor. At least we said not for inheritance, because we said inheritance, it has to be viable. Rashis, oh no, these are the type of things you want to remember. One thing per daf. We should make a list, one thing per daf. So maybe we'll do that for the... I think that for the next Masechta. Yeah, we just learned. Yeah, one thing per daf. Next Masechta, we're going to make a rule, one thing per daf. We're going to have to walk away with at least one thing per daf. So says the Gemara, over here, what do we got? So the question is, Peter Rechem, if it goes out, if you have one thing per daf for 175 lot, you're good to go. So if you have Peter Rechem, it's got to go through the birth canal. If it goes through the birth canal, then we consider it to be a Bechor. And then we said, unfortunately, if it's a stillborn or something, then Lamai it already had a Bechor, and that's it. The question is, what happens if it goes through the birth canal but doesn't really go through the birth canal? What does that mean in English? Either the fetus is wrapped with a chatzitza, with a separation, that causes it not to directly go through the birth canal. It means it goes through the birth canal, nothing's wrong with the birth canal, but there's something wrapped around the fetus somehow. Again, we're going to have extreme cases which are like ridiculous, how does that ever happen? But the point is that we're trying to ask that basic question. If it happens to be wrapped in something, then Lamaisa, or let's say you, as it's coming out, as we'll see, wrap it in a blanket. Let's say a little bit comes out and you're able to stick your hands in and wrap the rest to keep it warm. Now rove of it came out wrapped in a blanket or wrapped in something. Is that considered to be as if it came out through the birth canal because it was wrapped? Or the opposite case where the animal, or we're talking about a person or an animal, come out regularly, but for whatever reason, based on the woman, the birth canal is not regular. The birth canal ripped, part of the inner lining is not there, it's totally open, that it doesn't actually go through the birth canal. So do we consider it to be the airspace of the birth canal that's important, or you have to actually go through the birth canal? Either if you're going through like a car wash, you have to actually go through like those parts in the car wash and they have to actually touch you, or you just write the things at the end that like clean you off. Do you have to actually walk through those? Or what are they? Yeah, so you have to actually go through the stuff at the end of the car wash, which like comes and finally cleans the car at the end, or as long as it's open and you're just able to get out of the car wash, it doesn't matter. That's the Gemara's question. So first we're going to deal with the question of the chatzitza, where the birth canal is totally fine, but the fetus is wrapped in something. And again, we're going to see extreme cases, but just so that we remember the question. Kracho b'siv mahu. If the fetus is wrapped in some type of substance that grows by a palm tree, so is this a chatzitza to prevent it from being peter rechem, the opening of the womb? Says Gemara b'taliso mahu, if it's wrapped in somebody's garment. What's the story? And again, how would it be? It means you'd either open up, you'd have to stick your hand into the womb, you'd open it up somehow, and you'd wrap it, again, as the baby's coming out. Says the Gemara, what happens if it's wrapped in the what? If it's wrapped in the amniotic sac, b'shilyasoma. Says the Gemara, what kind of question is it? B'shilyasa orchehu. Every single person that comes out is wrapped in some type of amniotic sac. You're right. Ela b'shilya cheres mao. No. You went and you took an amniotic sac from somewhere else, and you wrap it in there. Again, hard to understand. What happens if the woman who's, again, like the woman who's attending to the birth, right? The midwife or the OB goes ahead and takes it in her hands or in his hands and draws it out of the womb, basically with their hands surrounding the fetus so that the fetus doesn't actually touch the walls as it comes out, the walls of the birth canal. Hey chidami, idanafak derech ratio. What's the question? If the fetus comes out head first, then what do we know? Petarti. As soon as the head comes out, then that's it. We already said that's peterechem, even if rove of the body hasn't come out, either rove or the head. So what's the case? Ela denafak derech maglos, and this is not so crazy. The baby comes out feet first. A little bit of the baby comes out with its feet. You stick in your hands, you wrap the rest of the baby in a cloth or with the hands of the person delivering it, and then you bring it out. So most of the baby came out, and not the rosh. Most of the baby came out wrapped in something. Is that a chatzitz or not? The Gemara is going to answer teku. Sorry to ruin it, but the Gemara is going to answer teku on all these questions. But that's a question. Listen to this one. This is really cool. A weasel went in to the animal's womb, hopefully not a human, went into the animal's womb, swallowed the fetus, drew it out, and then spit it out. So it came out through the rechem, but it was inside of a weasel as it came out. Hotzi also, the weasel took it out. Ha fikte. What does that mean? The weasel removed it. What's the question? It definitely did not touch the walls of the birth canal. Clearly, this is the same inquiry as all the other ones. So it's a chatzitza like all the other chatzitzas. Allah, no, I'll tell you a really good case. Bila also, here's the real case. So all the other cases are the same. It is a chatzitza, and the Lamaisa comes out. The question is, when it comes out with the chatzitza, is it coming out through the birth canal? Not teku, we're not going to know. But we have an even more interesting case. Bila asu, the weasel swallows it. V'hotzi asu, brings it out. Fine, that's normal. V'hechnisaso, then he goes back in and reinserts it. V'hakiyaso, and he expels it from his stomach into the womb. So now it comes out regular. V'yatzamei alav. Mao. So now it's coming out. The problem is it's the second time the fetus is coming out. The first time it came out through the weasel. Now the second time it's coming out is normal. Do we consider the second time that a person comes out through the canal to be Peter Rechem or not? So yeah, so for this one, Tosfos says it's unlikely it'll ever occur, and there we say drosh v'kavel schar. Let's expound the Torah and get more schar. Hidbik shnei rechamim. This is really cool. Let's say you attach the two wombs. Obviously, it's not going to happen by a human being. You attach the wombs of two different animals. Why you do this, I'm not sure. So it goes out of the womb, but it doesn't go into the world. It goes into the womb of the other one. Mahu. Didei pater. Do we say, well, it opens up its own mother and then it comes out of the second animal? So it wasn't actually born until it goes to the second animal. So do we say that it has to come out as a Peter Rechem? Because I guess we don't consider the first one to be Peter Rechem because it went into another womb. But now it comes out of the second one. Does it have to come out of your own? Do you have to come out of your own mother's birth canal? Which the second one is not, because you transfer from the first guy to the second guy. Now it's coming out of the second mother. Didei pater delav didei lo pater. Odilma delav didei nami pater. Teku tishbitar it's kushos ubayos. Get online. Boy ravacha. Niftachu koli beis rechem. So that's when there's a chatzitza. But let's say now that the kosle beis harechem opened up. That means the walls of the birth canal opened, so the fetus was born without touching them. It was very wide, right? The woman or the animal spread really, really big, and for whatever reason was able to expel the baby or the fetus or the animal without it ever touching the birth canal walls. Says in Gemara, Avir rechem makdish ve'ha'ika, or dilma negias rechem mekacha ve'aleka. Do you have to actually go and touch the birth canal walls, or going through the airspace of the birth canal is good enough? That makes sense. What happens if the wall of the birth canal were torn off? It means they were somehow completely torn from the mother's body. So now it didn't go through the birth canal. Nakru, lesnu, what are you talking about? If it's nakru, then they're not here. Obviously, the fetus cannot be sanctified unless it goes through the birth canal. There is no birth canal. Ella nakru v'tole b'tzavei maui. No, it's interesting that the walls of the birth canal came off. The walls of the birth canal cooled. It came off, and they ended up going into the womb and wrapping themselves around the fetus. So now it's coming out in the walls of the birth canal, but not because the walls of the birth canal are in the mother, but because the walls of the birth canal are enveloping the actual fetus as it comes out. Are they only Mekadesh, the walls of the birth canal are only Mekadesh a fetus when the walls of the birth canal are where they're supposed to be in the place? Or Shalobim Koman Lo Mekache, or Dilma Shalobim Konai Mekache, or as long as it comes out in the walls of the birth canal, even though it's wearing the walls of the birth canal, it's still going to be Mekadesh. Says in Gemara, Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zera Nigmimu Kodle Beis Rechama. What happens if the walls of the birth canal peeled away? Somehow the entire inner layer of the birth canal peeled off. Is it still considered to be a birth canal or no? Amar lei kanagat bebaydi baylam. We have another question that seems to answer this question. We're going to say it doesn't really answer this question because it's a different question. But originally we think this is the same question we had elsewhere. Did Rabbi Zera, because Rabbi Zera asked, Rabbi Zera me Rav Asi, or Rabbi Zera asked Rav Asi, Omid Murala parts v'yatza derech parts. Parts Murala Omid v'yatza derech Omid. Where do you have Omid Murala parts? Where do you have that in general? Forget about the birth canal here. Where do you have that? By Hilchos Eruv. We know by an Eruv, like let's say Toronto, there has to be a wall all the way around the city. Now we could create walls with lechis, and you could create walls with having sticks and having the Eruv on top. But let's assume you have walls, and let's say there's a little spot in the wall which is open, called parrots. Parrots is open. Meruba Omed is closed. So let's say you have a space that's open in an Eruv. Let's say you have walls around a whole city and there's an open space. So the halacha is that if it's 10 amos, 20 feet or more, it's going to ruin the entire Eruv. If it's less than 20 feet, it's not going to ruin the entire Eruv. Now what happens though if you have less than 20 feet? Let's say you just have sticks every like 15 feet. So when you look at the entire Eruv, what do you see? You see a lot of space. It's mainly space, but no space is 20 feet. Right? Every space is less than 20 feet. So what do you say? Well, that's called Paretz Meruba ala Omed. Even though you don't have any spaces less than 20 feet, you still have way too much air around. You could have open spaces that are less than 20 feet if it's just once in a while. but not if the entire thing is open space, even though technically you're able to put poles every 17 or 18 feet. Says the Gemara, Omed Rubal parts. That means there's more walled portions than parts, than open portions. So what do you have here? You're talking about the wall peeled away, but what? The part that's Omed, that means the walled portion of the birth canal is more than the open part of the birth canal. So we asked, again, what did we ask? We asked if the walls of the birth canal were peeled away totally, but now we're giving a similar case. The walls of the birth canal were not totally peeled away. Parts of the wall of the birth canal were peeled away. So most of it was not peeled away, because the walled portion is more than the open part, but the fetus goes through the part that is pulled away. So do you consider it to be that we go based on the majority, which is not peeled away, or do we only care about the part that it actually comes out through, which is peeled away, and therefore it will not be a peterechem? Parts mubal omed, or the opposite. If you have more of it that's not peeled away and it goes through the part that's not peeled away, there's nothing to talk about. Or more of it that is peeled away and it goes through the part that is peeled away, there's nothing to talk about. For sure, it's not going to be peterechem. But here, the majority is intact, but it happens to go through the part of the birth canal which is peeled away, which is not intact. Therefore, do you say you go based on the majority is still intact, and therefore it went through the birth canal? Or do we say, no, even though the majority is intact, since it went through the part that's not intact, it didn't go through the birth canal? And the opposite. Parts mubal omed, most of it is not intact. But it happens to be what? If it went through the part, if most of it's not intact and it goes through the part that's not intact, nothing to talk about. But if most of the birth canal is not intact, but it happens to go through the part, the yatsa derech omed, it went through the part that happens to be intact, do we go based on the majority, or do we only care about the way that it went out? Says that question, which we don't know the answer to, is different. De'ika omed ba'olam. There, at least, there's some walled portion. So one can argue that even though most of it is space, most of it is missing, there's still some walled portion. And as long as it goes through the part of the birth canal that's intact, we can argue maybe that it'll be good. We don't know, but we can argue. But your case where you're saying that the entire canal peeled away, what's the havamina? It's not a question. That when the walls are entirely peeled away, then the fetus definitely is not sanctified as a bechor. Zok the Mishnah. Behema shemes ubra betoch meyaha. V'hoshid aroa es yado v'nagabo, behema tmeya, behema tahira, tahor. Rabbi Yosef Glili omer tmeya, tmeya, tamei, v'tahora, tahar. What's the case here? What happens if an animal drops dead and you touch it? It's an avela and you become tamei. Does it matter if the animal was kosher or not? No. Kosher animal drops dead and you touch it, you're tamei. Non-kosher animal drops dead and you touch it, you're tamei. That's what tamei means. Tmeya means a non-kosher animal. Tahora means a kosher animal. Fine. Now let's go to the next case. You have a kosher animal with a fetus inside of it that dies. You put your hands inside the kosher animal and you touch the dead fetus. Are you tamei or not? Good try. No. Says no. You're not tamei. Everybody agrees to that. Let's say it's a non-kosher animal and you put your hands in and you touch the dead fetus. Yes. Then you're tamei. That's according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili. According to the Tanakama, even if you put your hands in and you touch a dead fetus inside of a non-kosher animal, you're still not tamei. Let me just say it outside and then we'll read it inside and we'll be gone. No, a dead fetus inside of a kosher animal, inside a dead, no, the mother's alive. The mother's alive, now the fetus is dead. If the mother's dead for sure, then it's going to be a problem. That would be an interesting way. If the mother's dead, you can't put your hand in, even if the fetus is alive, you can't get your hand in without being tamei. Right? If the mother's dead, there's nothing to talk about. So mother dead, either kosher or non-kosher, you touch it, you're an avela. You're not avela, you're going to be tamei. Baby's dead, inside a kosher mother you touch it, or inside a non-kosher mother you touch it, according to Tanakama you're not. You go based on the mother's still alive. According to Rabbi Yosef Glili, if you touch it inside a kosher animal you're fine, inside a non-kosher animal you're not fine. It's not so crazy that it'll happen. You're checking if you put your hand into, I wouldn't do it, but you put your hand in the womb to see if the animal's still alive inside. It's not so crazy. So let's just say the svara outside. Why would the svara be that if you touch a kosher animal, the womb, the dead fetus inside a kosher animal, you won't become tamei? Says the Gemara in 1 second. Again, we're just saying it outside. It's pashut. If I shecht an animal that's kosher, a cow, and there's a dead fetus inside, I can eat the dead fetus. So for sure, it's not going to be metamei me. I could eat a dead fetus that's inside of a mother if it never came out. If I shech the mother. If you have a mother, that's what a ben pekua is. If you shech the mother, and there's a fetus in there, whether it's alive or dead, you could eat it. That's the halacha. So for sure, if I'm going to be able to eat it, for sure it's not going to make me tamei. What does that have to do with a non-kosher animal? That svara doesn't apply. If I shecht a non-kosher animal, I can't eat inside because I can't eat the non-kosher animal itself. Says the Gemara, that's the machlokes. According to the Tanakama, you make a hekesh. We'll see elsewhere there's a hekesh, there's a pasuk that compares non-kosher animals to kosher animals by nevelas. Therefore, whatever applies to the halachas of a kosher animal will apply to a non-kosher animal, even though in svara, when you touch the dead animal inside the womb of a non-kosher animal, you should become tamei. Based on the hekesh, we're going to make you tahor. Says Rabbi Yosef, we don't make that hekesh. Ridiculous. He doesn't have that hekesh. He actually brings another pasuk in well and says, no, by a tamei animal, if you touch the dead womb, since the svara doesn't apply that you can eat the animal if you shecht it, therefore, l'maisa, it'll be fine. That's the whole... Okay, we're good. Keep going. Okay, says the Gemara. My time at the Tanakama, which again Rabbi Yossi Aglili will agree to. Rav Chisda kal v'chomer im ho'ila imo latira b'achila. If you go ahead, that's the one thing you learned today. Okay, Mendel, you learned that if you open up the animal and it's dead, you're good to go. There you go. Write it down. Im ho'ila imo latira b'achila. If the mother is permissible for consumption, and therefore what? When you want, if the mother can keep the fetus permissible to consumption, even when it's dead, lo Torah lo latura mida nevela. Of course, it's going to keep the baby from being a nevela and being matama you when you touch it. Ashchan behema tahora, behema tamei minon. That svara only works by a behema tahora, like we said, by a kosher animal. Says Gemara, Tanakama, who holds that even if by behema tamei, by a non-kosher animal it happens, it says in the pasuk v'chiyamus min habehema asher hi lachem le'ochla. If an animal dies that you can eat, so that he learns that it's two separate things. What's that? That's a behema tameya. That's a non-kosher animal. Zo behema tameya. Asher hi lahem lechachem le'ochla zo behema tahora. That's a kosher animal. What does it say by both of them? It says it compares a non-kosher animal to a kosher animal. It says both of them have the same halachas by nevela. Itkash behema tamei lebehema tahora, non-kosher animal to kosher animal. Ma behema tahora ubra tahor. Just like in the case of a kosher animal, if the dead fetus is inside and you touch it, you don't become tamei. Af behema tamei ubra tahor. So he makes a hekesh from a separate pasuk. Rabbi Yosef Glili, my time. But what does he say? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak said, what's the reason? To Amar Kra. Listen to this pasuk. V'chol holech al kapav b'chol hachaya. Haholeches al arba tameim heim lachem. Again, v'kol holech al kapav, anything that walks on its paws. Bechol achaya. What is bechol achaya? Amongst. How does he learn it? Inside of any chaya haholechet al arba, inside any chaya that walks on four, tameim lachem. Any animal inside an animal that walks on four is going to be tamei. A kosher animal walks on four or walks on eight. Kosher animal walks on eight. Each one of its feet are split hooves. So we consider a kosher animal to be walking on 8. We consider a non-kosher animal to be walking on 4. So it says any chaya inside an animal that walks on 4, he makes a limit as meaning what? Any dead fetus inside a non-kosher animal which walks on 4, tamei heim lachem. It's going to be tamei to you. Interesting limud. We're going to see in just a second that it seems to say that the mother is a kol holech al kapav. That the one inside, walks on paws. What does that mean? It sounds like the inside animal is a non-kosher animal, and it's inside of a non-kosher animal. Why does this make an afghan? Because if you remember yesterday, we said there's all these cases of these deformed animals. Let's say you have a kosher cow, an 8-legged, right? It has split hooves inside of a non-kosher animal, which has 4. Is that also included? The Gemara is going to suggest that this is only 4 and 4. Regular non-kosher animal inside a regular non-kosher animal, that'll be tamei. But maybe if you have this non-kosher animal, and the Gemara is going to reject this, and I'll tell you just again, it's just easier to say it outside first. Why is the Gemara going to reject this? Because there's actually a case of an 8 inside of an 8, which is clearly not going to be good. A pig. A pig chews its cud, but it has split hooves. So it's not going to be a 4 inside of a 4. It's going to be an 8 inside of an 8. A regular pig has 8 legs inside of a regular pig which has 8 legs. Hard to imagine that you're going to tell me that based on this pasuk, a pig, if you stick your hand into the womb of a pig and there's a dead pig inside, you're not going to become tamei. That's like... So therefore the Gemara is going to reject this whole suggestion. But in the meantime, we're going to get through a few different scenarios and we're going to try to suggest that only 4 in 4. Which means if you have a kosher animal inside a non-kosher animal, because again, it has like this deformed or split hooves. You have somehow, or somebody you have a camel inside of a cow, maybe the camel should be good because it's not a 4 inside of 4, and that seems to be rejecting only 4 inside 4. Says the Gemara, very interesting svar. Dead creatures that walk on their paws, i.e. that have 4 legs, because they're not split, that are within living creatures, that are what? That have 4, which is a non-kosher animal, then it's tamei to you. So a dead fetus inside of a non-kosher animal will be tamei to you. Ela me'ata kolot b'mei parali tamei. But according to this, if you have joined hooves inside the womb of a cow, a regular cow that has, again, we said a fetus that's a little bit deformed and has what? And has 4. So it's a 4 inside of an 8. Maybe it should be tamei. Because even though it's not inside of a chaya, it's still right? It's not inside an animal with 4, but the animal inside, which doesn't have split hooves, is a 4. So maybe it's not that it has to be a 4 and a 4. Maybe a 4 in anything will be tamei. Says no. No. In order to be tamei, it needs to be a 4 inside of a 4. And if you have a cow that has hooves that are together, which is a 4, inside a regular cow, it's still a 4 inside of an 8, and it's going to be okay. Para b'me'ei gamal lo titami. Now the opposite. Let's say you have a cow, a disformed gamal, we would say. Right? A gamal has 4 legs, not split. Let's say somehow a gamal had split. Now you have an 8 inside of a 4. 8 inside of a 4, based on this pasuk, should not be a problem. But we know it is a problem. We know that if a gamal is inside of a non-kosher animal, if a gamal is inside a gamal, even though the gamal happens to have split hooves, it's going to be a problem. It's a regular tamei animal. Says the Gemara, but why should it be? It's 8 inside of 4. Says the Gemara, there's another pasuk that adds. It says holech v'chol holech. The beginning of the pasuk says not just holech al arba v'chol holech. It includes this case where you have an 8 inside of a 4, inside of a non-kosher animal. So again, it comes out, if the animal is not kosher, doesn't matter what's inside of it. But now, what happens if you have a regular cow, and inside of the regular cow has a disformed cow, which has only what? Which has only 4. Says the Gemara, it should be tamei. No, what's the case here? You have a disformed cow that was born. Now we said there's a machlokes. Rabbanan say a disformed cow that's born without split hooves, according to one opinion, is not kosher. According to another opinion, is still kosher. Now you got this disformed cow with 4 that's walking around, and he's fine. He's kosher. He's a regular cow, even though he doesn't have split hooves. Again, that was one opinion said it's a problem. Chachamim say it's okay. Now he has baby, and inside of him the baby is also disformed. Got the genes from the mother. Now you got a 4 inside of a 4, but they're both cows. You're going to tell me that that's going to be a problem? It's kosher animals. Says the Gemara, you go back to the Kavachomer of Rav Chisda, since if you would open up and you shach the animal, then the animal inside would be okay, so then you're not going to make the animal tamei inside, even though based on the other pasuk, in Svara, one should say it's tamei. Very interesting Gemaras. Maskala Rav, this is the question that we have to reject the whole thing. Well, 1 second. A pig inside of a pig is an 8 inside of an 8. For sure it shouldn't be tamei, because the only reason that a pig is tamei is because it doesn't chew its cud. That's why, again, we said that a pig is the classic symbol of non-kosher, because it tries to trick you. It just holds out a thing. It doesn't show you that it doesn't chew its cud. It holds out its fingers and say, look, I have split hooves. That's what classic non-kosher is. It tries to trick you. Everything else you can see right away. This one is the Yetzer Hara trying to get you. Says the Gemara, therefore we have to reject this. Ela Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, we don't have it from this pasuk. Mehacha, another pasuk. Nefesh asher tiga b'chol davar tamei, o benivlas chaya tamei, o benivlas behemet tamei, o benevela sheretz tamei. If you touch anything that's tamei, any non-kosher animal that's a nevela, benivlas chaya tamei, benivlas behemet tamei. Says the Gemara, I understand. Why are you telling me that if I touch a nevela of a non-kosher animal, I'm going to become tamei? What do we know the halacha is? Even if I touch the nevela of a kosher animal, I become tamei. What are you specifying a non-kosher animal? Says the Gemara, it must be that it's not talking about a regular non-kosher animal. What's it talking about? The fetus in a non-kosher animal that's dead, you'll become tamei for. That's the chiddush of this pasuk. Is it true that only a dead regular non-kosher animal is matame you as a carcass? No, even a kosher animal that dies is going to be matame you. Rather, what's this pasuk talking about when it specifies a dead non-kosher animal? It must be talking about the fetus that's dead inside of a non-kosher animal. That's going to be different than the fetus that's dead inside of a kosher animal. In the first place, this whole thing with the 4 pause and the pause and the pause and the pause. Kamash Malan. Again, not to get into it too much, we shown him discuss this, but if it wasn't for this additional limud of Rabbi Yitzchak, you would have learned Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak in a separate thing. But Lamaisa, bottom line is that it comes out that a dead fetus, again, this is all within the second opinion. A dead fetus inside of a kosher animal will be not mitame you, because it goes after the mother. Since if you shach the mother, the fetus would be okay. It's not matami. That's what you want to remember. And a dead animal, based on these psukim, based on this pasuk, where it has to tell you that a dead animal's carcass is tamei. What's the chiddush? A kosher animal's carcass is also mitame. But if you have a dead fetus inside of a non-kosher animal, it will be matame. That's the second opinion. The Tanakama says we don't deal with any of this stuff. We know that for sure, again, a dead fetus inside a kosher animal is kosher, is not going to be matame. And we have a hekesh that teaches us that whatever the halacha is here, the halacha is here. And he would actually say that a dead animal, a dead fetus inside of a non-kosher animal will also not be matami. That's the machlokes. So it comes out there's a machlokes, like many things. Says the Gemara, Tanya. We'll end with this. Amar Biyonasan. Namti lo leben Azai. I said to Ben Azai, Lamanu livas behema tahira shemitama. We learned elsewhere that the carcass of a kosher animal is matame if you touch it. And we learned elsewhere that the carcass of a non-kosher animal, if you touch it, you become tamei. We learned elsewhere that the carcass of not only a non-kosher animal and a kosher animal become tamei. If you touch the carcass of a non-kosher chaya, like a lion, right, a wild animal, you become tamei. What's missing? We don't know the halacha of a carcass of a dead chaya that's kosher, like a deer. Doesn't say anything about a dead chaya that's a deer. The Gemara is just going to come out here and say, well, whatever we learn by behema, we can in general, whatever we have the halachas by behema, in general the halachas are like that by a chaya as well. There are exceptions. What did we say one of the exceptions is? The chalev. The chalev, the fats of a behema are aser. The fats of a chaya are going to be mutter. But in general, it says in Gemara, nivlas chaya tahora lo lamanu, minayin, kol lecha namli, he told me, kol lecha gaba b'chol achayaha ulechet. You have a special pasuk that says what? That it's a chaya. You see that a chaya talks about nevela by a chaya. Namti lo v'chinamar v'chol chaya, v'lo namar ela b'chol chaya. It's not talking about a regular chaya, it's talking about the special case. L'mahalchi kapayim b'chaya hudas. It's talking about the fetus. Namli said, u'mayishma lo meridor. What would he say? Namti lo v'chiyamas min ha-behema, zo behema tmeya, sharhi lachem le'ochla, zo behema tahora. Gemara says, how do you know again? We have a mefurish pasuk that tells us 3 of the 4 cases. If you touch a dead kosher animal, a dead non-kosher animal, a dead non-kosher chaya, those are all going to be matame. We don't have a source that if you touch a dead kosher chaya like a deer, you're going to be tame. Says Gemara, how do you know it? Because it says in the pasuk, v'chiyamus min ha-behema, is a behema tameya. Asher hilahem le'ochla is a behema tahora, and we learn elsewhere that in general chaya and behemas are interchangeable. So whatever applies to a behema will apply to a chaya. Whatever applies to a chaya will apply to a behema. Chaya tahora b'chlal behema tahora. Chaya tehemeya b'chlal behema tameya. Behema tameya b'chlal chaya tameya. Behema tahora b'chlal chaya tahora. Uvelashon hazeh amar li hachevel chaval al benazeh shloshim eshes Rabbi Yishmael. Too bad he wasn't here earlier. But again, bottom line is, how do I know that a dead kosher chaya like a deer is going to be matame? Because in general, behemas and chayas are interchangeable. Whatever applies to a behema applies to a chaya, with some exceptions. And therefore, since we have a mefurish source that if you touch a dead kosher behema, you're going to be tamei. Therefore, we know by definition that if you touch a dead kosher chaya like a deer, you're going to become tamei as well. Good chodesh, everyone.